Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving deep into one of the most legendary, most debated, and honestly, most brutal battles in medieval history, the Battle of Agincourt. Forget the epic movie scenes for a second. Let's get into the mud, the blood, and the raw reality of what happened on October 25th, 1415. This isn't just a story of longbows versus knights. It's a tale of desperation, shocking decisions, and a result that nobody saw coming, so let's set the stage. It's 1415, and the 100 Years' War between England and France is raging on. The English king, Henry V, a young and ambitious ruler, has just invaded France. His campaign starts well with the capture of the port city of Harfleur, but it comes at a huge cost. His army is ravaged by dysentery, what they called the bloody flux. They are starving, exhausted, and a long way from the safety of English-held Calais. Henry's original plan was to make a show of force, a chevauchée, basically a grand raid through French territory to assert his claim to the French throne. But now, with his army whittled down to maybe 6,000 to 9,000 men, it's become a desperate march for survival. Every day is a struggle against hunger, sickness, and the ever-present threat of a massive French army shadowing their every move. Henry's men are in a terrible state and morale is plummeting. They are trapped in enemy territory and the situation looks bleak. Meanwhile, the French are feeling pretty confident. And why wouldn't they be? They've assembled a colossal army. Estimates vary wildly, as they often do for medieval battles. But we're talking anywhere from 20,000 to 30,000 men, possibly even more. This force is packed with the cream of French nobility. Knights, men-at-arms, all clad in the finest plate armor money could buy. They are well-fed, well-rested, and on home turf. Their plan is simple. Block Henry's path to Calais and force him into a battle he can't possibly win. They finally corner the English army near the village of Agincourt. The French leadership, a collection of powerful dukes and constables, is so sure of victory that they reportedly spend the night before the battle feasting and playing dice for the English nobles they plan to capture for ransom. From their perspective, this isn't a battle, it's a glorified roundup. They've got the numbers, the heavy cavalry, and the terrain advantage. Or so they think. The night before the battle is miserable. A torrential downpour soaks the battlefield, turning the recently plowed farmland between the two armies into a thick, sticky quagmire of mud. This single act of nature will prove to be absolutely decisive. For the English, cold, sick, and huddled in the rain, it must have felt like the end. For the French, it was just an inconvenience. As dawn breaks on St. Crispin's Day, the two armies draw up their lines. Henry V knows he's cornered. He can't run, and he can't wait, he has to fight. He positions his small army in a narrow clearing between two large woods, the Agincourt and Tremicourt woods. This is his first brilliant move. By choosing this narrow frontage, he nullifies the massive French numerical advantage. The French can't just swarm around his flanks. They have to come straight at him. Henry's army is mostly made up of archers, about 80% of his force. These aren't just peasants with bows. They are highly skilled, professional soldiers armed with the English longbow, a weapon of devastating power. Henry places his men-at-arms in the center and has huge wedges of archers on the flanks. Crucially, he orders his archers to hammer sharpened, 6-foot wooden stakes into the ground in front of them, creating a deadly makeshift fence to break any cavalry charge. This was a tactic learned from previous battles, and it was about to be put to its most famous test. The French, on the other hand, make a series of catastrophic errors. Their command structure is a mess, with multiple nobles vying for glory and making independent decisions. They are so confident in their heavy cavalry and armored knights that they completely underestimate the English longbowmen. They decide to fight on foot, placing their men-at-arms in 3 massive divisions, or battles, one behind the other. Think about this for a second. Thousands of men, each weighing a ton in full-plate armor, are about to charge across a freshly rained-on muddy field. It's a recipe for disaster. The ground is so soft and cloying that just walking is exhausting. Charging would be nearly impossible. For hours, the two armies just stand there, staring at each other across about 1,000 yards of no man's land. It's a tense standoff. The French are waiting for more reinforcements and expect the starving English to make the first move. But Henry knows waiting will only weaken his army further. He needs to provoke the French into attacking. So in a move of incredible audacity, Henry orders his entire army to advance. They pull up their stakes, move forward to within extreme longbow range, about 300 yards, and hammer them back into the ground. Then, the sky darkens. The English archers unleash a storm of arrows, thousands upon thousands raining down on the packed French lines. The sheer volume is terrifying, a sound like a hailstorm. Each archer could fire 10 to 12 arrows a minute. We're talking over 50,000 arrows per minute falling on the French. The arrows pierce armor, kill horses, and cause chaos and panic. This is exactly what Henry wanted. Goaded into action, the first French line, a mix of mounted knights and men-at-arms on foot, begins its slow, ponderous advance into the mud and the arrow storm. The cavalry charge is a complete failure. The horses, wounded and terrified, slip and fall in the mud or are impaled on the archers' stakes. They turn and flee, trampling their own infantry behind them. Now the main body of French knights on foot plods forward. The charge becomes a slow, exhausting slog. The mud sucks at their steel-plated boots, pulling them down. Men are exhausted before they even reach the English lines. They are so tightly packed that they can barely lift their arms to swing their weapons. When they finally clash with the English men-at-arms, they are tired, disorganized, and compressed. The English, fresher and more lightly armored, can move more freely. And this is where the English archers become even more crucial. Having used up their arrows, they drop their bows, grab whatever they have: hatchets, hammers, daggers, and swarm in from the flanks. These lightly armored archers can dance around the heavily encumbered French knights who are stuck in the mud. They pull them down, stab them through visor slits and gaps in their armor. It's not glorious combat. It's a brutal, messy slaughter. The first French line is annihilated, and the dead and wounded pile up, creating a gruesome barrier of bodies that the second French line has to climb over. The second wave meets the same fate. They stumble over their fallen comrades, get stuck in the mud, and are hacked down by the English. The sheer weight of the French numbers now works against them. Men are crushed and even suffocated in the press of bodies, unable to fight or retreat. In the space of about 3 hours, the pride of the French army is utterly broken. But the battle isn't over. There's a controversial and dark final chapter. As the English are securing thousands of prisoners, a small French force, led by local lords, attacks the lightly guarded English baggage train at the rear. At the same time, the third French line, which had been held in reserve, seems to be regrouping for another attack. Henry V is in a perilous position. He's won the main fight, but he's outnumbered by his prisoners, and he faces the threat of a renewed assault. He makes a ruthless decision. His men are reluctant. These nobles are worth a fortune in ransom, but Henry is insistent. He orders the execution of the French prisoners. Many of the prisoners are killed before it becomes clear that the third French line is retreating and the threat has passed. It was a brutal act of military necessity, as Henry saw it, but it stained an otherwise incredible victory. The aftermath was staggering. The English lost a few hundred men, at most. The French losses were catastrophic, numbering in the thousands. An entire generation of the French military aristocracy was wiped out in a single afternoon. 3 dukes, 9 counts, and thousands of knights and men-at-arms were dead. The political impact in France was immense, creating a power vacuum that Henry V would exploit in the years to come. So how did this happen? Agincourt was a perfect storm of factors. The English had brilliant leadership in Henry V. They had the right weapon for the conditions in the longbow. They used the terrain masterfully. On the other hand, the French were overconfident, had a divided and incompetent command, and chose tactics that were completely unsuited for the battlefield. That muddy field wasn't just a feature of the battle. It was arguably the most important combatant. Agincourt became a cornerstone of English national identity, immortalized by Shakespeare with the famous St. Crispin's Day speech. It's the ultimate underdog story, but it's also a stark reminder of the brutal realities of medieval warfare, where weather, terrain, and a single ruthless decision could change the course of history. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into the Battle of Agincourt. What do you think was the single biggest factor in the English victory? The longbow? The mud? Henry's leadership? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more journeys into history. See you next time.